everyone, I'm Rachel here with Ari, and we're your hosts for the Merry Writer podcast. This week we're on episode 260, and we're asking how important is hands-on novel research? Before we start, if you enjoy the show, consider checking out our coffee page. You can follow the page for free as we have plenty of goodies for all of you. If you're feeling generous, a one-off donation will get you access to more treats, or you can become a Merry Writer for just $2 a month. And for that, you can get access to all the items in our shop, including exclusive goodies, as well as access to monthly bonuses, all while helping to support our podcast. But of course, if that's not your style and you still enjoy the show, then please subscribe wherever you're listening if you're not already, and consider dropping us a like if you're watching on YouTube. So what exactly do I mean by hands-on research? It just means actually going out into the world and doing what your characters do. And I know that sounds scary because we're all shy and introverted and we don't like talking to people, but it really is a good thing to do. And, for example, if your character goes sailing, go sailing. If your character rides a horse, take a riding lesson. If your character is a hunter with a bow, take an archery class. This type of research allows you to experience what your characters experience so you can better your description for these scenes, and your characters will actually know the correct terminology for whatever they're doing, and it just kind of adds this extra layer of truth, I guess, to your fiction writing. Because even though most of us are fiction writers, there is some truth to what we do. You still want to be accurate with your description and whatever your characters are doing and where they are. It's the same thing. Like if you're setting your book in a place that's based off of somewhere on the actual map of the Earth. It's the same thing. Very similar. If you want to learn more about what your character does, then absolutely go ahead and go give whatever they do a shot. Will you be able to, go hunting in a forest with a bow and arrow? No, probably not. But an archery class can help you at least know the terminology for a bow, and you can describe how to stand when actually like nocking your arrow and shooting it and this, that, and the other.
That is actually so true. Because I took archery. And one of the things I find, because you can interview someone who does archery, and that is useful. However, if you do certain things yourself, like riding a horse or taking an archery class, you learn real quick that when your characters are first learning this, wow, that really starts to hurt my shoulder the more times you're pulling that arrow back, especially because obviously bows have different draw strengths. So obviously you can't just grab any old bow. It's like it's designed, you pick ones that are specific to your strength, your abilities. And yeah, it's little things like it's not just like, well, I'm a right-hander, so I'll hold the bow this way. It's like, no, that totally depends. You can be a left-hander or a right-hander. It doesn't matter if you are right-handed or left-handed. Little things like that. If you've never ridden a horse, the moment you sit on a horse and go for a ride, especially if you do like trekking, where they take you on and they wander around, and sometimes they can go up hills and things, you start to realize just how painful it is on your butt when you're in that saddle. They are not always that comfortable. Obviously you can get more comfortable saddles, but after a while it hurts when you realize you have to like push down on the stirrups and lift yourself if you're trotting or galloping or anything. It's like your thighs are like, wow, that is so achy if you've never done it before. So if you're talking to someone who's done horse riding, if you're talking to someone who's done archery for a long time, they might have forgotten that it feels like that kind of like, oh yeah, trying to pull the bow back and getting that ache in your shoulder. And like if you're holding the arrow and your elbow is up and it's holding it for ages, you feel this sort of like tremor in your shoulder. If you've been doing it for ages, you forget that. If you've been a horse rider for a long time, you forget what it's like that first time when you're like, oh my God, my ass is killing. So having that hands-on is so important, because it also helps if you're doing a character doing something new. Like if they're finally going on a journey and they've never done it, they're getting on a horse and they've never really ridden a horse, you could add that kind of level of just, wow, the animal is doing the work. They're walking, they're moving along. You could even be tied to another horse and just be, walking. You don't have to do anything. It still hurts. There's still pressure on your legs. Having to hold your body up, that core strength, that is painful. So you can add that nice flavor to your character, or have them remember when they're, there's a flashback when they're younger and they have that, oh my gosh, this is so hard. Sailing, pulling on those ropes, making sure that you're not getting knocked over when the boom swings by with the, the sail on it. Which is why sometimes interviewing people and they've been doing it a long time, you can miss the little nuances of starting something and doing something for the first time.
No, I mean, that's all correct. And I got to be brutally honest. I took an archery class in the fall of 2023, I think. And it was just like it was like the beginning of the beginner class. It was and it was just all about learning about the different bows and arrows and just like the terminology and how to hold it, how to stand, and this, that, the other. Like it was so eye-opening. And a couple of like last weekend, I went to my friend's house and we watched The Swan Princess. Did you ever watch The Swan Princess?
I have seen The Swan Princess, yes.
Oh my gosh, it's such a good movie. And then we rewatched it. We were like, this is awful. Derek's a really toxic man. But anyway, I digress. We were watching the movie and Derek has a bow and arrow. And one of my friends was like, that bow is far too big. And my sister and I were like, no, actually, it's not. Like, that's how big they are. Like, you get a bow assigned to you based on your size. Like, it pretty much is the same size as you, more or less. And it's all these little details that you wouldn't even think about. And that if you took a class on them, then yeah, you would know. When you budget for your book, if you have a little wiggle room with that money, you can use it to take these classes to understand your character a little bit better and what they're doing. And you don't even necessarily have to take a class. You might even be able to go someplace like a dance studio, for example, and ask to sit in during a class for free just to watch. And you can just watch their movement and listen to the instructor tell what positions they want the dancers to be in and so on. And it's just, I don't know, it's eye-opening and it's a lot of fun too. But because even going back to I know I'm all over the place, sorry. Going back to the riding, I go to a barn on a weekly basis. I don't ride, but the kid I nanny rides. And I cannot tell you how much I've learned about horses and just the act of riding in general, just by being at the barn a couple of times every week for the past few years. And for the first time a couple of months ago, I got a pony ride on her pony, and the trainer just walked me around the ring. But as she was walking me around, she was telling me, like, do this with your legs, do that. And then she was like, put both of your hands on your hips. And you don't realize what a huge balancing act. It's not even the physical stamina that you have to have for your legs and for your whole body. It's even just the balance too. Because even the kid I nanny for, she'll do jumps with her hands on her hips. And I'm like, God damn. But not even just the act of it itself, it's also the equipment needed. I honestly thought that a horse needed a saddle and reins, and that's it. A horse needs reins, a bit, because there are different types of bit, and this is all on the bridle. They have a martingale, they have the saddle, and the stirrups are separate from the saddle. By the way, I just recently discovered that a couple of months ago when I thought she broke her saddle, and she was like, could you help me put these back on? I was like, no, why did you do that? I don't know how to put your stirrups back on, but they need a saddle pad. They need a half pad. It's just, and then there are spurs, the crop. You have the half chaps. Obviously the different riding boots, your helmet there's so much that goes into it. And it's wild. It really is. And also horses fart a lot. Okay. When you watch horses on movies, they're always like, hiya, hi-ho silver, away. No. They click. You click your tongue, you use your legs to get them moving. You don't actually like yell at them or anything like that. You just make these sounds with your mouths. And that's how they move. And they fart a lot and they spook easily. They'll spook themselves with their own farts and it's hilarious. But also like it's, it's just, it's a wild thing. I realize I am going on like a whole nother tangent about this, and I apologize because it's fascinating. If you're interested in something and you want to write about it and you want your character to do those things, then yeah, absolutely put in the time and, invest a little in it if you can, and just take these classes or go speak to somebody. As Ari mentioned earlier, do interviews count? Yeah, I would absolutely say interviews count as hands-on research, because you can talk to somebody about a skill or talent they have and it adds more to your knowledge than reading about it in a textbook or something. Because if you need to know different stitch names for knitting, just ask a friend who knits and explain it to you. Maybe they'll even show you how to knit, and then it could be a whole new bonding experience as well.
I'm just going back around to the horse thing. It's so weird how I said this. It's not just the way you ride, it's the equipment, the outfit. Obviously, depending on the size of the horse, depending on the size and weight of you, depends on the size and weight of the horse, the temperament. I always remember whenever I used to go horse riding, if you're in a group, depending on which horse you end up with, you could end up with one that loves to follow all the other horses. So all it takes is the higher leader horse to spook, and then all the others are like, oh, we're all going this way, are we? Like, no, we're not all going that way. And then you've got a blooming stampede. Awful. But like the care of it, like the brush downs and cool down, so many little things you might not think. Oh yeah, if you're riding a horse for a long time, it needs a cool down. It need, you can't just go, oh, the horse is absolutely exhausted, let it drink water. Nope, that's not a good thing. You have to do certain things. And I know some of you might be sat there going, well, what about if I'm writing about the army? They're not going to let me just go in the army. No, they won't. Same with the fire brigade. They're not going to let you don an outfit and run off to fight fire. However, I'm just going to make a quick point about this. There are information online that gives you what the requirements are to pass, like the fire brigade test, like the physical test. Same with the police, same with the army. Again, it all depends on different countries, but you can find what you have to do, like the minimum level to pass the physical. Do it. How many push-ups do you need to do? How much weight do you need to strap to your back and run around up and down with? Obviously, let's add a quick disclaimer. Please do it carefully. Do not hurt yourself. Do not injure yourself. We are not saying, yeah, strap a 400-kilogram weight on your back and run around. I don't think it's that, but just saying. Obviously, anything like this, do it with caution, do it with help, do it with other people and everything. But yeah, sometimes you might not be able to say, oh, how did they do it in the, what's the army like? But you might be able to find out the sort of things you have to do in basic training, and you could then try them. How tiring is it to go on a hike with this much equipment in your backpack? Again, safely, always do it safely. I don't want anyone coming at us with this. So there's also things like that. And with certain places, you can get a little bit of hands-on, You might have to go and talk to some management, you might have to say, have I got this? You have to get liability, but you'll be surprised how many things, especially as a writer, like, I'm doing this for writing. People can be quite accommodating to let you sit in, to let you watch, to let you try, as long as it's safely and, you're not a liability. But yeah, I think it all comes down to having the confidence to actually reach out and ask for things like that.
Well, that's just it, isn't it? It's the confidence piece. I think that's what gets people, because even when I did the archery class, my cousin, she has no problem. If she wants to do something, she'll do it. She has like zero thought process behind it. She's just like, I'm interested in this. I'm going to go ahead and do it. And she does it. And it's fabulous. And she told us we had gotten together with her, and she mentioned to us, she's like, oh yeah, I'm taking archery. And we were like, archery? Where in the world are you taking archery, and like, why? We didn't even know you were interested in archery. And she was like, well, I found this place that does archery for women, so I decided to give it a go. And we were like, that's so cool. When does it start? We would love to do it. And she's like, the first class is tomorrow morning. And we were like, oh, but we did it. I don't do things impulsively, like, ever. I'm a huge planner, especially when it comes to money. And I did it. I was just like, oh, well, if it starts tomorrow, let's sign up right now. And we just did it. And it was such a fun experience. And that's an added bonus of doing the hand-on research for your novels, is because writing is lonely. But if you go out and do these things, you'll add experience and fun to your own life, and you're just adding more general knowledge to yourself. Will you ever be riding on a horse in a forest and, shooting bows and arrows? Probably not. But I mean, it's still fun to do, and you just get to try new things, and you'll also meet new people in the process. And again, despite us not wanting to actually talk to people because we are introverts, most of us, but I mean, you might even find a new hobby for yourself as well. And if it's something that I never did sports growing up. I tried. I'm not an athletic child or person. I just don't like sports in general, but like that type of stuff, like riding horses, I will never do that because it's God expensive, my goodness. But I can live vicariously through the kid I nanny for, and that's kind of enough for me. But archery, I do plan on picking that up again at some point when I have more time and more money in my pocket. But it allows you to go out and try new things and just have all these different experiences, because we all dream about it. When you read a book, especially like fantasy or something, you're always like, oh man, I wish I were a hobbit. I wish I lived in the Shire. I wish I could do this and do that. Oh, you know what? You can. You just won't have the same atmosphere, the same environment of it, but you also won't have the threat of the bad guy. So your chances of living have increased. And that's an added bonus as well.
Yeah, that's true. And also there's ways of doing things. Like obviously it depends on location and what is around you. But like I don't know if you ever have like Renaissance fairs where you are, but that can give you a feel for what things are like. I know obviously we're talking fantasy anyway. If you're writing fantasy, it's like Renaissance style. Or if you are writing an adventure one, go on a hike. Are you a hiker? Probably not. Make it safe. We're always going to talk about safe. Don't go, I'm going to go up a mountain on my own in my sandals. Don't do that. Be safe. Always make sure you are. But it can, again, if you are not a hiker and you've got characters that are like trudging through the weather, again, not saying do it in the worst weather, but go out for a hike. See what it feels like to carry a backpack full of stuff, trudging through, feeling that weight when you don't realize how like achy. It's like, oh, it all feels fine at the beginning. Shoes feel great, clothes feel great, and then you get rained on, and then everything's wet, and your socks are just awfully wet, and there's just no way of getting dry. And this is going back to a walk I did when I was in school, and we got absolutely rained on, and we had 3 more hours of walking. And then and it was just like monsoon level, and the grass was mud. And honestly, by the time we got where we were going, it was like nobody cared to see these caves. We didn't know what, nobody wanted it. And then we had to go all the way back to the van, and it was awful. And I have never felt so cold and so miserable in my life. And I draw on that every time I have to put my character through it, because that sensation of never feeling warm, of that dampness on your skin, of knowing there's this many more hours before you get there, and you've got to go up 3 hills, and the ground is slushy, and you've fallen so many times, you are just covered in mud, and then you start laughing because you just can't take it, and that's literally hysterical laughter. So yeah, there's little things you can do. You know, are you basing your novel in a certain country? No, maybe you can't visit it, but could you eat their food? Have they got events on in certain areas? Sometimes you can have cultural events that you can go to that can kind of give you a taste of that sort of thing. So there are ways where it's like, oh, I can't afford to go to the Taj Mahal. You can't afford to go to India, but maybe you can, if you've never tried it, you can eat Indian foods. You can see what sort of clothes they wear. If it's like certain, we had some wonderful shops where I came from that sold clothing, like traditional Indian clothing, and it's like absolutely the fabrics were beautiful. Like you wouldn't find that sort of stuff in our regular shops and everything. So you could go to those areas, and it was lovely to see that sort of thing. So yes, okay, it would have been nice to be able to go to certain countries to get more of an in-depth feel. And if you can, brilliant. But if you can't, there are other ways to kind of feel it. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does make sense. It makes a whole lot of sense. And I really appreciated your story about you being in school, because that's the whole purpose of this. You'll make memories. Some
Bad
really
ones, always bad memories.
some really nice memories. But I don't know. I know we kind of talked a whole lot about horses and stuff like that in this episode, but it's all good. I feel like when people think about research for their novels, they think they just go on Google and they type in what they need to know. They ask questions into Google, or maybe they'll go to their bookstore or the library and they'll, read books on the topic. But I don't know. I learn better when I do things myself. And I think it's just a great idea to get yourself out of the house, try something new, go out of your comfort zone a little bit. And I actually I already mentioned this a little while ago, and I'm going to bring it up again, but a lot of people are accommodating that. If you say, hey, I'm writing a book and I need to do research on this one thing, do you mind if I sit in for this class and watch? Most people probably will let you do that for free. And if you want to give it a try, you know what? A lot of places will probably also have like free trial classes as well. Or you could do a one-on-one private lesson. There's so many different things you can do. And obviously talk to your friends, talk to your family members, especially if you're writing like a timepiece from, I don't know, historical fiction or something. If you know anybody who was alive at that time, go talk to them, talk to your grandparents if you're fortunate enough to still have them. It's just, I mean, there's so many different things you could do, and I don't think we think outside the box enough when it comes to writing. Because I think the other thing is too, and yes, I realize I'm like going on a tangent right now, but I think the other thing is that when writers research, they also kind of view it as procrastination. But if it's gonna, really boost your writing and add flavor to it, as Ari said earlier, which I really like how you said that, it adds flavor to the writing. And you're also learning something new in the process because you're experiencing life. I wouldn't call that procrastination. It's all good information to know. It's all fun. And just do it. I am really going to stop talking now because I just won't stop going off on tangents about hands-on research. But I mean, hey, if you have the time and you have a little extra money in your pocket, then yeah, go ahead, do something. If you're interested in something, do it. Before we leave, if you want to learn more about us and listen to these rants and rambles, and you want to learn more about the podcast and opportunities to be a guest on the show, then please do go check out our website at themerrywriterpodcast.podbean.com. So we're going to turn it over to you guys. How do you prefer to do research for your novels? Do you typically take classes and do hands-on, or are you more of like the textbook and reading and studying? Let us know your answers in the comments so we can chat about it. Remember, we release a new episode every Wednesday. Next week, we're discussing what you wish you were better at as a writer. To ensure you don't miss it, don't forget to hit the subscribe button on your way out. As always, thanks for listening to the Merry Writer Podcast. We'll see you guys next week. This podcast is brought to you by Scraps of Paper. We have notes everywhere. The music titled Inspired is by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under Creative Commons 4.0.